From Eyewitness News, this is Newsmakers.
Less than 10% of the 113-member General Assembly are Republicans. Not a single state office holder wears an elephant pin, and a rising star in the party was crushed in his first run for U.S. Congress. It's safe to say the state Republican Party is in shambles and leaderless. Two men are vying to become the state GOP chairman and increase the party's influence in government at all levels. This week on Newsmakers, state Republican Party chairman candidates Daniel Harrop and Mark Smiley.
Good morning. Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White. Joining me on the panel, WPRI.com reporter Ted Nesi and Eyewitness News analyst Arlene Violet. So we flipped a coin to decide who was going to be in the order of guests for the first half and the second half. And pulling a page out of Coach Belichick's book, Mark Smiley decided to defer to the second half. So joining us on the first half is Dr. Daniel Harrop. Doctor, thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you very much for having me this morning.
All right, so I'd like to know the first thing you would do as chairman of the party that would better the Republican standings in future elections.
Raise money and continue to raise money and to call daily to raise money. Unfortunately, politics is money. Unfortunately, we have not had enough money over the course of the last number of years. We've been through 5 chairmen in 4 years and a month, and this has severely hampered us as far as raising money goes. I've been the finance chairman, but the chief fundraiser is always the party chairman who must make the calls and must do that on a consistent basis.
So the prior chairmen have been absolute failures at raising money so far?
They haven't been there long enough in order to make the connections. You have to develop these type of connections with people, and it's very much a personal development to get more than the $25, $50 donations, which are essential, but your $3 check off on your Rhode Island income taxes are not going to raise enough money for the party. I've been able to develop some of those connections, but we frankly have not been able to close on those connections in that particular venue. In another venue and in many other venues where I have been able to raise money. For example, I'm the chairman for the Rhode Island Center for Freedom, which is Mike Stenhouse's group. In less than 2 years, we've raised, Mike and I, $750,000 and now have a staff of 4 in less than 18 months because of the connections and the development that we've been able to do. I can pursue that better within the Republican Party if elected chairman. And I think that's why the nominating committee of the RIGOP has made me the endorsed candidate for chairman for the next 2 years.
Dan, Doctor, I should say, 2012 was a very tough year for your party. As you know, the GOP lost every statewide race, doesn't hold any federal or statewide offices now, and now has a little under 10% of General Assembly seats. What do you think went wrong for the Republicans in Rhode Island in 2012?
Sure. First, Dan is fine.
I
think what went wrong is we did not get our message out. I mean, a secondary thing after the money is our own communication. I think, for example, the colonel got crushed, and I think that the Republicans in general, because we did not get our message out about exactly how poor this state is doing and what we intend to do for this state. I think that the congressman who I ran against as mayor when I ran for mayor of Providence,
Congressman Cicilline
is an excellent communicator. And he got the message across that you may not like me, but I will protect your Medicare. Now, the colonel said that too, but the colonel said it a day late and $1 short. He said it a month later. He did not get out there right away. We've got to be much more proactive in getting out there and getting our message across about exactly what's going wrong in the state and exactly how our elected Republican officials are handling it well.
Some Republicans, though, yearn for the days of John Holmes and a Michael Valenti when they would call out the Democrats as being responsible for the economic malaise that exists in the state. Now, a lot of Republicans were chagrined that you supported Cicilline's in the debate between him and Mr. Gemma on the voter fraud issue. Underlying that was their concern that you didn't disclose that you work for the city of Providence doing evaluations for disability pensions while Mr. Cicilline was mayor. Off here you mentioned you're also doing that for Mr. Tavares. How can they have confidence then that you will speak out against those gentlemen if and when they do anything wrong?
Well, on that particular issue with Gemma, that was, I hate to use the word crazy being a psychiatrist, but it was crazy. I ran against the mayor. It was a very respectful campaign. I was very much challenged him on his things. You haven't lived till you've debated him with his mother sitting there in front of you, glaring at you for 90 minutes as you explain how her son has done poorly in the city. I challenged him continuously, but that thing with Gemma was unfair. It was just untrue, and it was wrong.
Should you have disclosed, though, that you, in effect, not totally on the payroll, but that you are a consultant and the Cicilline administration, that Mr. Tavares also, quote unquote, pays you also to do evaluations? I mean, doesn't that somewhat compromise your ability to be objective and go after them?
I earn a total of $1,000 every other month from the city. So I earn about $6,000 from the city doing consultations as they send me. I think it's quite interesting that recurrent Democratic administrations have decided this is a guy who tells the truth. This is a guy we want his opinion on. This is a guy we're going to call and pay for his opinion. And they've done that recurrently with this particular time. I think that speaks to my standing in the community. $6,000 in my particular financial situation, frankly, is nothing, and I don't see that as a conflict.
Dan, looking ahead to 2014 and those elections, what would be the priority for you? Would it be governor? Would it be the General Assembly?
I think we need to get our general offices lined up early, and there's already meetings going on to get those lined up early. And I'm hoping to have that lined up by the end of the summer. 5 general offices.
Who's going to run? Who's going to run?
Aha. You'll learn by the end of the summer. But the negotiation's going very well. There's no disagreement among people. We're not going to have any primaries, and we're going to have an all-star slate of offices.
You don't expect a primary for governor?
I do not expect a primary for governor. At that point, we can then take our General Assembly people, protect them, and then work on that to build the base there. And we will have a full more than a year, even before they have to declare, to be able to do that. So we are well ahead of the curve in this particular election cycle.
I want to ask you about same-sex marriage. It's been interesting in recent weeks. The House Minority Leader voted for the same-sex marriage bill. The Republican Senator Dawson Hodgson's in favor, as is former Chairman Gio Ciccione. Of course, lots of Republicans are also opposed to same-sex marriage. Where do you see that fitting into the platform of the Rhode Island Republican Party going forward, and where do you stand personally on the issue?
I think it's well known where I stand personally. I've testified against the bill in the past as the chief medical spokesperson for the Diocese of Providence. However, I don't see that as a major issue in our platform at all. It hasn't been discussed at all at any of our meetings. I mean, Rhode Island ranks 50th by CNBC in economic, in business climate. We rank 50th in terms of unemployment. We are losing massive amounts of our working age population, 25 to 54. At this point, that's what Rhode Islanders want to hear. That's what we're going to talk about. I think this is a very minor issue.
People are aware how bad things are. What they want to know is how you're going to fix them. What is going to be the, is the 0% sales tax going to be a rallying cry for the Republicans? What do you see as the core Republican message to voters?
There are a variety of issues. I think the 0.0 that my Rhode Island Center for Freedom is pushing, and now Leader Newberry is pushing, is certainly one of those issues. It would put us on the map at this particular time. But we've had great debates on this and how much of it should be reduction in business taxes, how much be reduction in personal income taxes, and the like, how much just business regulations that we need to get rid of at this particular time. I think those are the issues we're going to present. We have successful mayors in Warwick and Cranston that can be held up as role models and will be held up as role models in the course of the next general election.
Internally, the Republicans fight about whether they should go back to their conservative message versus opening the tent, as it were. Where do you stand on that continuum? Where do you think Mr. Smiley stands on that continuum? I'll ask him this too. Basically, what really is the core of that argument?
Okay. Mark and I have very little difference in policies and the like. I'm basing my campaign on the experience I've had in the party in order to be chairman, which I think got me the endorsement. I'm in favor of a big tent. I know that's been talked about and put down, but I'm in favor of much more broad-based and not going back to these smallish core conservative principles. I think that the economic principles are what we base our campaign on, and that's really what we go to the people with. And that's what makes the big tent at this particular time.
You support, I think, tuition for immigrants, in-state tuition, for people who are illegal, et cetera. I hear some Republicans oppose your candidacy because of that, because they think you're so liberal. You would say to them?
I would say to them that we have to open up the Republican Party. We need to begin a conversation with the Hispanic community. I do not think that attacking 30 students, and that's what the Journal said. There was one URI student eventually applied for this grant. There were 30 students at state colleges. This is not an issue that we need to address at this particular time. This is not where we need to go to open up our policies and our economic policies to the Latino, Hispanic community, which will benefit them greatly.
Based on your answer, I assume you do not support closing the Republican primary.
I do not support closing the Republican primary.
Do you think Ken Block's moderate party hurts the state GOP?
No, I don't think it does. I think there's a lot of studies about third parties. I think third parties bring in people to the electoral system who would not otherwise vote. I think that's probably what he does, which is a good thing. I wish he would come over to the Republican Party. I think he could be quite comfortable in the Republican Party at this point, and I would strongly invite him into the Republican Party. But I don't think it hurts us.
Speaking of Ken Block, I spoke with a Republican a few days ago who said to me, this person was astonished that Ken Block has gotten so much traction in the last few months on both the master lever and now this week's huge brouhaha over the waste and fraud and social services report, and said, why can't the Republicans get that kind of traction? These are our issues. What do you say to someone who looks at that and says that?
Well, Ken Block is a unique individual. I mean, I'll compliment him. He has unique skills, saved Texas over $1 billion, and those skills you're seeing again in Rhode Island. And I would congratulate him and encourage him to continue to do that. He doesn't have a complete platform. He's unable to build a third party. Third parties do not work in this country. He's not going anywhere politically. He needs to get into the Republican Party if he wishes to push his agenda further.
The knock on the Republican Party is, though, that it hasn't built the Republican Party, and the reason is there's a Democratic governor, he hires Democrats. Republican governor, like Kachiri, hires Democrats. What are you going to do? Should that be reversed? Is the spoil system something that's integral to building a party?
Well, I think Republican governors hire the most competent people out there. And in
So there's no competent Republicans, because they tend to hire 90% of them are Democrats.
There's competent Republicans as well, but we hire the most competent people with that type of thing. And so I'm not going to knock Governor Kachiri for his hiring policies at this point.
But Governor Kachiri and Governor Allman got criticism from the grassroots for not getting involved, not
being
building
a
up the party.
cheerleader.
Someone said to me, John Chafee would go to any envelope being opened or anything to build up the grassroots, and the governors since then haven't. How do you change that?
You change that by working with the governor more at this particular time. There was a difficulty working from the Republican Party side with the governor. Kachiri, anyways, I was less involved with Allman's administration. I don't see that as happening when we have a Republican governor 2 years from now.
All right, Dan, we have to go to break, but very quickly, can you give us any hint as to who you would like to see as a Republican running for governor?
Alan Fung.
Straight out, that you don't. Scott Avedisian is.
Scott Avedisian, I think, should be on the ticket. I think he should be governor someday. I would be very happy to have him as governor. I don't think at the present time, I think Alan Fung is a stronger candidate at this point. But if Alan decides not to run, I'd be right behind Scott.
And Mayor Avedisian for lieutenant governor, maybe?
Possibly. I think the mayor's interests may lie on a different position on the ticket.
Okay, we have to take a break, and when we come back, Mark Smiley, he is also hoping to be the state GOP chairman. Stay with us. You're watching Newsmakers.
What a tease.
Welcome back to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White. Sitting to my right, WPRI.com reporter Ted Nesi and Eyewitness News analyst Arlene Violet. We are grilling candidates for the potential chair for Rhode Island State GOP. Our guest for the second half is Mark Smiley. Arlene.
Mark Smiley, you and Dr. Harrop look like you're vying for the last berth on the Titanic. What do you think you can do to revivify the Republican Party?
Well, I think it is about messaging. We really need to get our message out. I don't think anyone's actually heard from the RIGOP in a decade. We get drowned out because we don't have a singular voice. We need to organize our message.
Which is what? What's the message?
Well, it's mostly a pro-business message, to be honest with you. Pro-business, lower taxes, the standard small government stuff. But we need to show it so that it actually is personal. We need to tell people that in South Carolina, you pay 70 cents less a gallon for gasoline, and the difference is our tax structure in Rhode Island. There's a huge cost of living price that we pay here. I have a friend that lives in South Carolina. He lives in a $500,000 home on a golf course. He pays $880 a year in property taxes. I pay almost that a month in Warren. We need to show people that their cost of living is being affected by the kind of government they continue to elect.
And then, as I kind of said to Dan before, the next question is, and then how would the Republican Party change things? Specific policies. Is it the 0-0 thing that's gotten a lot of attention lately? Where do you see the policy moving to appeal to people?
We need to.
That's a 0% sales tax.
Yes.
Correct. 0.0 is one of them. I'd like to see us model our state government after what New Hampshire's doing. They service about 300,000 more people a year with their government for almost half the budget. And there's much more prosperity in New Hampshire than there is in Rhode Island. They have a stronger unemployment rate. Their unemployment rate's much lower than ours. People are doing better in that environment than they are here. And that's the kind of thing that we need to get back to here in Rhode Island.
Of course, that has a lot more to do with than just the sales tax rate in New Hampshire, don't you think?
Absolutely. We have certain taxes against our businesses that make no sense at all. $500 is just a tax every year you get to pay just for the right to call yourself a business in this state, whether you make money or not. Inventory tax. You can't keep inventory in the state of Rhode Island without paying an extra tax on that. There's just little grabs here and there that hurt our businesses that then turns around and makes the unemployment rate more difficult to get back under control because the businesses are weaker.
Mark, a lot of the people that are watching this program this week are probably going to be deciding who the next Republican Party chairman is in Rhode Island. Did you hear anything from Dr. Harrop in the first half that you just patently disagree with?
No, I don't think I patently disagree with all except for that last one.
So why not just flip a coin?
Well, there are differences between us, and we didn't really get into what that was.
And I should ask you, you said all but the last one. So
The last one, yes.
So
About the candidates?
About the candidates. I'm not going to support any candidate if there is a primary. Where I stand right now is I'd like to see Brendan Doherty run. For governor. I don't know that he's going to do that. There are also discussions regarding that. I know that's happening in the background, but actually my focus is all about General Assembly. Yesterday, we were just mentioning it earlier, the Speaker of the House pulled back the ethics bill because someone stepped off the script. There's a scripted General Assembly up in Smith Hill because we don't have any Republicans there to stop the script. So someone stepped away. They didn't do what the speaker said.
Yeah, look, we've had Republican Party chairmen come in here many, many times, and they always say we need to grow our standing in the General Assembly. They can caucus in a phone booth right now. How would you be any different?
Well, we need to focus. I think the past chairs have gotten lost on federal campaigns, gubernatorial campaigns. They've stopped focusing on campaigns that we can win in General Assembly seats. And that's what we need to get back to.
The doctor obviously talks about his fundraising prowess as a top priority. Isn't that really a priority of making?
It's a priority. It's
and
always.
what kind of job can you do vis-a-vis him?
Well, I've come from the grassroots. I've stayed away from the actual fundraising part of it. I've raised funds for business, that sort of thing, but that hasn't been my job up to this point. The thing that I see is that until we show our message, until we get our operations together and we show that focus, fundraising is not going to be successful. I don't think we've been all that successful over the past few years, and we need to do substantially better. There are models across the country where states with more Democrats in it have raised hundreds of thousands of dollars more than we have. We need to learn from them. How did they do it? What did they do? One in particular is West Virginia. They picked up 11 seats. They've had a Democratic House since 1928, which sounds very familiar. We've had one since 1935. They're now 4 seats short of being the majority. It can be done in this environment. They did it in the Obama election year. So that is actually the directions that we need to go in. We need to improve all of our operations and show our donor list that we've changed and we have our act together. And at that point, our donators will come back to us.
Mark, I mentioned in the first half same-sex marriage. You see different opinions now on the Republican spectrum in Rhode Island and nationally. Where do you stand on the issue, and how do you see it fitting into the future GOP platform?
Well, at first, I was fine with gay marriage. I don't see where anyone gets hurt in gay marriage until I saw what actually happened in Massachusetts after the gay marriage bill passed there. Things like the Catholic Church was barred from being involved in adoption services, that sort of thing, bringing the agenda into our schools. There's now parents in Massachusetts that are complaining that their third grade students are being taught about gay marriage. And the reason that they can do that is because now it's state law that we can get married and we're gay. If there aren't any protections, I'm against the gay marriage bill. If there can be protections written into the bill that this does not raise the agenda in the peripheral of the actual issue, and it just is about two people entering into a contractual relationship to support each other, I'm okay with that. But it can't go into every corner of our society at the same time, especially into our elementary schools. It just doesn't make any sense. Why do our children need to be thinking about this at all?
On the first half, Arlene had asked Dr. Harrop about the big tent philosophy, and I'm curious where you stand on that, but specifically, do you support or not support closing the Republican primary?
I do support closing the Republican primary.
Why?
Because I believe that independents, we want their opinion, absolutely want their opinion, but more often than not, our primaries are played with from the opposite side. There will be groups of Democrats that will 90 days out disaffiliate and become an independent, come into our primary and vote for the weaker candidate.
Do you think there's large enough numbers of that happening, or do you have...
In a Republican primary, such as we're going to have in the next election cycle, in a non-presidential year, absolutely. You know, there are elections across the state where we may see as little as 500
Can you name
votes.
an election in which that happened?
Just recently, there was one up in Foster where there was a complete sweep of the entire Republican ticket.
So do you agree or disagree with the thesis that the Republicans don't win because they don't stick to their conservative message?
The Republicans don't win because we don't stick to a message. We don't. It's not necessarily the conservative message. We guess what the message is supposed to be. We won't be doing that going forward.
What do you think the message is?
It has to be a pro-business, better your life, make it personal kind of a message.
Hasn't Ken Block and Gina Raimondo co-opted that message already?
Well, unfortunately, yes. If we leave that void, yes, that is in fact actually what they're going to do. But we don't have that coming out of the General Assembly. We have 6 people in the House and 4 people in the Senate, and they can scream as loud as they want to, but the party needs to get behind
You
them.
said, unfortunately. Do you differ with Dr. Harrop? Do you think the moderate party hurts the state Republican Party?
Only in selected races. And really, I believe that it did hurt John Robitaille's chances as governor to have Block in the race. And I believe that Lincoln Chafee is the governor today because Ken was in that race.
I think you have 5 senators, and not 4 in the Republican Party.
Okay.
I don't want to.
Maybe they've
I
been
don't
too
upset
quiet.
the caucus, right? But speaking of the senators, I went on Tuesday. I covered a press conference that Senate President Teresa Paiva-Weed, a Democrat, had along with Majority Leader Ruggiero, and Senate Republican Leader Dennis Algier was sitting there with them. He gave a speech about how they've done so much to help business and how he's proud that the Republicans are endorsing all the business bills that are coming through. And I did find myself thinking, I was like, well, there's not a big contrast here between the two parties then, because they have the same economic agenda. I mean, what do you make of that? Why was the Republican leader in the Senate so supportive of the Democratic leadership?
Well, he's not going to get mean about the fact that there's been some progress. There needs to be a lot more progress, and I think if Dennis Algiers was at the front of the stage there, up on the podium, things would move a lot faster towards being a more pro-business environment. So he's not going to disagree with progress of some kind.
Do you see yourself as a rock'em sock'em kind of chairman, like a John Holmes, Rocco's Robots, Fox's Follies? I mean, are you going to call the Democrats out?
I will call the Democrats out, absolutely. And I will try to make sure that this party holds together. It's not an easy task. This is oftentimes it's been referred to as herding cats. And we really need to stick together and get the job done.
Mark, we're just about out of time. You are a longtime Patriots fan, season ticket holder. How do you feel about Wes Welker going to the Denver Broncos?
It's even worse that Peyton Manning's going to be throwing to him.
Right.
That's even worse.
I know, 2 years, $12 million. You think they could have come up with that kind of money? Well, thank you, Mark Smiley, for joining us. On Thursday, the Republicans will be choosing their new chairman. So look for that vote. We'll have the results, of course, here on Eyewitness News. I want to thank Dr. Daniel Harrop, who joined us on the first half. If you missed any of it, you can catch it on WPRI.com. That's under the on-air section. Thank you to Arlene Violet and Ted Nesi. I'll see you next week on Newsmakers.
That was